Welcome everyone to a new episode of our Urban Lands Talks. Today, we wanted to focus on those citizens who are taking an active role in the energy transition. We mean citizens that are producing and consuming renewable energy in their towns or in their neighborhoods and who have gotten organized themselves in an operational way to be part of energy communities. They have achieved what is still an aspiration for Europe and maybe for many of us. I'm Ana Calvo and I work at the Swedish Center for Innovation and Quality in the Built Environment, Ike-Songhalsbyggnad. And I also work at the European Partnership Driving Urban Transitions. Today, it's my pleasure to moderate this webinar. So when planning this webinar, we were looking at past and new legislation that the European Union has published. And we see that the EU intends to improve our ability as consumers to share, to produce, and to sell energy at the local level. The soon-to-be published Citizens' Energy Package is one more step towards that direction. But at this point, you might wonder, like all of us, how has the process worked so far? How many energy communities have been established in Europe? And maybe as a takeaway from this webinar, we can think of what the EU and the EU member states could do to facilitate this process so that more energy communities are established and thriving in Europe. To shed light onto these questions, we have invited four speakers. They are experts in research and also policy, and some of them have also worked in energy communities or as part of energy communities. Let me introduce you the panel of speakers that are joining us today. The first one is Adela Bara. She's a professor at the Bucharest Academy of Economic Studies. She's joining us from Romania. Welcome, Adela.
Hello.
Hi, welcome. Our second speaker is Chris Bretos. He's a senior policy advisor at RESCUP, the European Federation of Energy Communities, and he's joining us from Brussels. Welcome, Chris. Glad to have you here.
From Athens. That's why it's all very sunny today. But yes.
Much better. Also joining us today, Jelena Nikolic. She's a research assistant at the Aalborg University in Denmark. And last but not least, Marton Fabok. He's a coordinator at the Solidarity Economy Center. And I think you're joining us from Hungary.
Yes, indeed.
Great. Welcome to all of you and also to those who are joining us online. Please feel welcome to use the chat during this session and write down, for example, where are you joining us from? Also, you are welcome to write questions while our speakers are talking, and we will try to address the questions towards the end. Let's start with Adela. She's a professor and expert in energy management systems and a co-partner in a DUT project that is focused on creating a service-oriented open platform for citizen energy communities. Adela, could you tell us a bit more about you and about your project, what the project aims to achieve?
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm a professor at the Bucharest University of Economic Studies, Department of Economic Informatics and Cybernetics. And our research focuses on how ICT tools and artificial intelligence can support the energy transition, particularly in areas such as renewable energy system, prosumer, local energy market, and energy communities. Regarding the Open for Czech project and platform, the main objective is to develop a service-oriented, open and collaborative platform that support the transition towards citizen energy communities. What is different in Open for Czech is a microservice-based architecture where flexible and modular application can be combined and communities can easily adopt and scale depending on their needs.
Great. Thank you, Adela. Then I would like to give the floor to Chris Bretos. Chris, you work at the European Federation of the Energy Communities, RESCUP, and have a good overview of the policy landscape concerning energy communities in Europe. Could you tell us a bit more about you and about your work?
Yeah, thanks again for having me. I am indeed working right now mostly on how do we push member states to create national enabling frameworks for energy communities, and particularly looking at the public financing side of things. So I'm very interested in the social climate fund. We've built a social climate fund tracker, looking at whether member states are using the fund to support energy communities. And we're also, as ResCoop, very, very interested and leading on mobilizations around the EU budget negotiations. So the next, let's say, EU budget period from 2020 to 2034 to secure funding for energy communities there. And last but not least, and I know Anna will talk about this quite a lot, next week we have the publication of the Citizens Energy Package, which is going to be a huge boost for community energy over the next decade in Europe. So this is another file we're really looking at.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for that introduction, also telling us about the Citizen Energy Package that it's about to be published. So next, Jelena Nikolic, you work as part of the Copper project funded by the UT as well. And you have recently led the publication of a report that is looking at regulations that are in across Europe in 4 countries: Denmark, Portugal, the Netherlands, and Norway.
Yes.
Yes. Could you tell us more about you and your background and your work specifically?
Yeah. Well, I'm Jelena Nikolic. I'm from Serbia, but I work in Aalborg University, and my main topics are energy community. And I feel it's really important for me, because how energy communities are important, I realized when we start Electro pioneering in Serbia, energy cooperative there, where we try to make some positive changes. So for me, I can say that when it comes to energy communities, I have in-field experience, but also research experience that is equally exciting.
That's a really good mix. Thank you, Jelena.
Thank
And
you.
last but not least, I would like to give the floor to Marton Fabok. You're part of an energy community in Hungary called the Solidarity Economy Center, and you're also a partner of the UT project Energy for All. Could you tell us more about you and your project and your work? Thanks.
I am economist and social scientist by training, and we at the Solidarity Economy Center, we are basically running a facilitator for energy communities across Hungary called Transformator. And the energy community we started with, we grew from, is the Kazan Energy Community that's located at the Kazan Community Center in Budapest, in one of the deep rider areas of Budapest. This is a building level energy community. And we basically installed solar panels on the rooftop, which generate not just green electricity, but also money for us. And we use this money to gradually improve the energy efficiency of the building, which used to be a really which used to be an industrial building in a bad condition. And we are doing it together with very strongly working together with the tenant organizations of the building, who are different NGOs and civic enterprises. And that's where the Energy for All project is really helpful for us, because it's basically another step forward in terms of having a much more better collective operation of the building, and specific intervention co-design with the building users.
Thank you, Marton. Thanks so much. Before we continue, I would like to remind everyone that this webinar is being recorded, and we will publish the recording later on YouTube, in our YouTube channel. Also, if you haven't joined us before and you don't know about this Urban Land Talk format, we are going to just have a conversation together. And of course, you can have lunch, and you can also take the opportunity to go for a walk and listen in. This is more like a podcast, so there will not be any presentation. Okay, now just to kick it start this conversation, I would like you to finish one sentence. Let's start with Marton, who was the last one speaking. So the most important thing with energy communities is?
Cooperation and democracy.
Great. What inspires me about energy communities is, Jelena?
Well, community itself, because energy community shows us that when we are transparent and that we are work together, and when we trust each other, we can do and change much more than just energy systems.
Very inspiring. A surprising thing with energy communities is, Chris,
They can really stabilize your energy prices. I think we're seeing now again, for example, with Iran, when, with the gas prices shooting up 50% in Europe, that by having a local solar panel and battery, a local system with your community, you can really take back control. And that's kind of surprising when you get the first bill and you see, oh, wow, this is a very significant reduction. It's a sense of ownership.
great, the sense of ownership. Okay, and a big challenge for energy communities is, Adela?
Is that we often treat them as technical projects when in reality they are socio-economic systems that require fairness, digital intelligence, and more, let's say, solutions towards people.
Thank you. Thanks so much for giving us a bit of an insight of what the talk and the energy communities mean and they are. So I would like to start to create some understanding among you speakers, but also about with the audience about what energy communities are about. So my first question would be, what comes to mind when thinking of energy communities in Europe? What does this represent to you? What does this term represent to you? Chris?
So many things. Where do you start? For me, it's democracy. It's about kind of believing again in our communities, kind of restoring this sense of trust. I'm sorry, I keep making political references to what's happening currently in the world, but I just saw a poll, a public poll from the Greens in the UK that are now polling second, down from 7% a year ago in the national elections. And this really shows that if we combine social policy, things that really speak to people's everyday realities, getting to work, lighting their house, warming their house. If we combine social policy with green policy, I think we can really, achieve great things. And this is a very, very concrete thing that energy communities can do.
Does anyone else want to share their thoughts? Then in your experience, who usually starts an energy community? Because it might not be an easy task. And what do you think that the main driver and motivation people have when they are starting an energy community?
I would say it's usually a core group of 2, 3 very motivated people that have the energy, the tools to, carry things forward. And this might, frame energy communities as a bit of an elitist concept in the sense that, you have to have time, you have to have money. True. But by now, there's so many community energy groups set up all over Europe that really you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You can usually just look in your local map or the ResCoop map and just find the local community and join it. So, there's already so much built-in knowledge and capital and wealth of contacts that I think we're here really to help each other out.
What do the others think? I know that Yelena had also been in an energy community, right?
Yes, yes. Well, I think that it's always enthusiastic citizens, and it's always about that first push. And as Chris said, even if you don't know where to start, the great thing about those enthusiastic people are usually they're really willing to share their knowledge and their experience. So even if you are completely stuck and when you know where to begin, you can always ask for some kind of help and support. And I think that's also really nice and really great thing about communities.
Any other thoughts about who starts an energy community and what's their motivation? Adela or Marton?
Yeah, I think technically or legally, who starts an energy community depends on national regulatory context. But the common denominator is this: the energy community usually starts when there is a gap between citizen expectation and the existing energy system. So people want to move from being passive consumers to become active energy actors, and the real driver is the desire for autonomy and fairness. Energy community begin when people decide that maybe they don't want to be price takers, but they want to be decision makers.
Thank you.
I think one additional thought from Hungary, that what we see that that it's not energy communities emerging out of nothing. It's usually energy communities usually based on existing citizen collaborations or collaborations with municipalities. So I think it's important to see that it's not something that comes out of nothing, but it's rooted in how citizens work together. Probably have existing collaborations or organizations, but deciding to take a step up in forming an energy community.
Thank you so much. So it comes from the citizens. We've seen in recent years that the EU has published legislation such as the Clean Energy for All European package, and they are trying to, of course, encourage the establishment of energy communities. However, many countries have still not transposed the legislation that was published, for example, in 2019. So maybe that's why I wanted to ask you, what is your view on the way that the European Union encourages establishment of energy communities, and how do you think that the process has worked so far? You have any comments?
It kind of does and it doesn't. There's been a couple of European projects, including LIFE, Horizon, or service contracts like the Energy Communities Repository, now the Citizens Energy Advisory Hub, where the Commission is like actively trying to cajole member states to implement the directives. But we still see that a lot of them are lagging behind. We're tracking this thing as ResCoop with the enabling frameworks tracker and the transposition tracker. But yeah, we see that a lot of work still needs to be done. I'm sorry, I'm going to get a bit technical. I'm going to get into a bit of policy, but there are some avenues that we think the Commission can use better. One is the European semester, which is this annual country recommendations that the Commission gives to member states on policies they have to implement. So we think that can be better used to instruct member states to finalize the transposition. And now we have the revision of the governance regulation, which is kind of the architecture of the Energy and Climate Union. The revision is happening this year, and we're calling on the Commission to include mandatory KPIs for community energy. So in the national energy and climate plans, to include mandatory KPIs for energy communities. So these are just some of the ideas. There's much more, but yeah, just to kick off the conversation.
Thank you. Martin, do you want to add something? Or anyone
Yes,
else?
I think it's interesting to have a look from the member state level. And in Hungary, I think it's definitely clear that it has been a top-down process in the sense that the whole concept comes from the EU directives and which is one of the reasons we have a mixed picture. Energy communities there weren't an established concept. They didn't have much roots. Also energy cooperatives. And that's why I think it was a really big push from Europe to have this phrase and to have some basic legislation expected from the member states. So that was really great, but because it was the existing policy scene and the energy sector that implemented the project, implemented the concepts, I think it resulted in often in a very technocratic understanding of what energy communities are. They are treated as vehicles for energy sharing. They are treated as a kind of technological or market innovation and not as a grassroots innovation. And I think the challenge in Hungary, and I suppose in many Eastern European countries, to demonstrate that energy communities are social innovations and are actually tools for democracy and local citizens to take over their means of energy production and use.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing your thoughts on that, Chris and Martin. Then you've mentioned some of you like other actors involved in or that interact with energy communities. So I wonder, what role do they play? For example, what role do municipalities, housing companies, and other institutions play when they interact with energy communities? Do they facilitate things? Do they not? Are there any issues that you want to bring up? Yelena, maybe?
Yeah, I can give my thoughts about this one. When it comes to municipality, they're really important, and I would like to say that they have a dual purposes in this energy communities playfield. Because first of all, if you have municipality in your energy community, that means that you have someone who will push the process, especially in the country, and that push is really needed. That is one thing. And second thing, when you have a public buildings and municipality, that is also really good for your energy communities. Because, for example, if you have your PV production in your household, and in the peak of production, you will probably be at work or kids will be at school, and no one will be able to use that electricity. But when you have a municipality or school or any other public buildings in your energy communities, you have someone who can use that electricity and who lives and actually who is located in the same neighborhood. So that is quite important, and that can bring additional benefits, not just social, not just trust, but also we can help the grid. So yes, all actors have their really important role, and we all have to find a way to work each other in the best with each other in a best possible way.
I think it's quite interesting that in different European countries, I think different municipalities have different roles in energy communities. In some countries, my understanding is that energy communities are seen as a kind of alternative to municipalities. In Hungary, I think it's more the opposite, in the sense of municipalities are often taking the lead. Because as I mentioned previously, they are difficult to find often those kind of citizen initiatives who are capable to implement a community energy project in a very difficult legal context without much money. So municipalities clearly have the potential of becoming local democratic institutions who actually have some capital, because energy is a very capital-intensive area. I think it has, from a Hungarian perspective, huge potentials in the sense of how to make municipalities more participatory in the process and more active in engaging with climate change and the energy issues. But also there is a danger that we see. In a sense that municipalities establishing energy communities by name and probably using some money for that, but without actually putting public participation in the center of those initiatives. So that's what's important, to avoid these kind of dangers and to focus more on the potentials of how to use municipalities to be the center of a citizen-led energy transition.
Thank you. So I see that the municipalities can support the establishment of energy communities, and that, however, we need to have public participation at the center. We actually got a question in the chat directly to you, Martin. I wanted to take the chance to ask you. It says, is there energy sharing happening in this community that you mentioned at the beginning, that is in a building? And is the community acting as an energy sharing organizer, AESO, under the terms of the directive? This is a question from Danielle. Do you think you can answer?
Yes.
Yeah.
We are talking about the Kazan energy community, and there is no energy sharing in the technical sense, because it's all happening one point of delivery. So one point of the DSO network, and the energy is shared within the building between different building users. So it's not using the public grid for that. In Hungary, as well as in many other countries, energy sharing is still problematic. We have a legal definition for that, but not the detailed legislation to make it happen. And I think it has a huge potential, not just for energy communities, but for innovative business models, more in general, but we are not there yet in Hungary.
This links a little bit to the next question, which is about like when energy communities are already operating and what would make them to succeed and to operate in a good way. I wanted to ask you all, how can energy communities be sustained over time? Adela, would you like to start?
Yes, energy communities can act and can trigger other services, can act as a management team for other services. Of course, business models are very important. What makes an energy community successful is not only producing renewable energy and sharing or injected into the grid, it is to create a long-term shared value and stacking value. An energy community should not remain just an electricity sharing scheme. It can become a platform or a service for additional services, let's say, share public services such as community laundries or cooking facilities powered by local renewables when the surplus is high, EV charging infrastructure, energy advisory and optimization services can be done, or even local electricity trading. In this sense, the energy community will become a local innovation hub, not just an energy project. So this is where the business models plays an important role. Without an adaptive business model for every type of community, for type of people, their behavior, their profiles, even the most inspiring community initiative cannot survive regulatory changes, market volatility, or scaling changes. So this is the main aspect, that business models need to be created, and these business models must combine diversification, flexibility, and transparency.
What do the others think?
Actually, I think I have an additional thought on that, that I also think that business models are really crucial. And I think that's often our challenge in terms of legislation and the market conditions. What do they enable? What we see in Hungary, that we don't have a winning business model. In the countries where energy communities were able to become mainstream and to accelerate and to have established models, I think they were all able to build up at least one business model which was clearly beneficial financially and working. I think one example is jointly owned PV and wind in the feed-in tariff scheme in the past in Germany and other countries, and also district heating in Denmark and other countries. So I think where there is a clear business model that's financially working, that's the key for energy communities to become, I wouldn't say the majority, but to become mainstream.
Yeah, maybe even more broadly, I would say political will. If you look at the Netherlands in the 2019 climate agreement, there is a non-binding target of 50% of all solar and onshore wind to be in community ownership by 2030. And this goal, again, is not non-binding, but it has informed all political strategies since then. And in September of 2025, the Ministry of Climate sent a letter to the Parliament, a 13-page letter, it's incredible, saying that energy communities are, a tool for energy security, they are really beneficial for our country, and these are the steps we're going to take to support them. So you see what it means. You have kind of a model of what it means when a government truly supports energy communities. And in other cases, such as in Spain or in Italy, there's an extensive use of public funding to support energy communities. Right now, for example, with the Recovery and Resilience Facility. And that really sparked a lot of interest to create new such communities. And speaking to what Martin said, the interesting thing with Spain was there were these let's say, subsidies to do local energy sharing and storage, flexibility, even electric car sharing. And Spain is really good because there's a very viable business model around energy sharing within a 2-kilometer radius. That basically you are exempted from grid fees if you're sharing within these 2 kilometers. So it's really kind of a very viable and attractive business model.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to comment something else?
I also have, I completely agree with everything that was said here so far. And I completely agreed with Adela that we have to have transparency, and that transparency is key in all business model. Everyone has to be aware how that works. Good business model is a key. And I think that one more really important thing, especially when it comes to PV, it's we have to try not to overproduce. To be able to find a good business model for our energy community. So to find the best consumer demand, production demand profiles together.
I would like to add something related to the consumption with the load. It's a very important thing to combine and to balance the load with the production. So the issue is not to invest in too much storage. I was looking at some reports, and they mention something related that for 1 kilowatt in PV, you must buy 2 kilowatts of capacity storage. So it's not like this. We must shift. So we should think about business models that shift the consumption from morning and evening, and shift it during the mid time when the surplus of the PV generation is high. So this paradigm should be provided and explained to the prosumers and the consumers. Also, in other countries, I noticed something related about prosumers. For one prosumer, you should bring in the community 3 consumers without self-generation to consume the surplus. It's not like this. It's to create business model that shift the consumption, and people should be aware of the incentives and the benefits they can get by shifting the consumption, not to be a constraint, rather not to inject into the grid, rather than let's say buy storage or invest in additional capacity.
From engineering side, I think that's really important, and that this is something that we should all talk about, especially from the beginning of energy communities, because storage is a simple solution. It looks like a simple solution, but first of all, it's expensive, and it can cause problems, and we should deal it with another way.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all these examples. Martin, do you want to add something?
Yes, I mean, I completely agree that it's a paradigm shift. The old paradigm has been that there were baseload power plants, such as nuclear, which were running all the time, and there were peak power plants, which kind of provided the electricity in the peak periods when the consumption was high, like in the evenings, when everybody gets home, turns on the TV, and so on. Now, with intermittent renewable generation, if we would like to achieve zero carbon electricity system, we should have a different paradigm. And the center of that paradigm is flexibility. And storage is a very simple and expensive way to provide flexibility. And there are so many different ways for so much cheaper price, just to sharing the load between the citizens, to use the geographical interconnections. And this is why I think energy communities can play an important role, but I think it's also important that it shouldn't be expected from energy communities to bear the burden of this one, because energy communities are not consumer aggregators or something like that. So we shouldn't expect necessarily too much functions, because I think the whole aim of energy communities is primarily to provide benefits for the participant members and the wider community, and not necessarily to stabilize the grid. or not just, or not primary, to be more precise.
I would just like to add something here, and I completely agree with you. And you point a really good thing right now, because it's not their primary grid, but if we are doing that right, we can also, like, grid can benefit, because in most cases, for example, in Serbia, you will always see the DSO complaining about possibilities of sharing and all the other things without realizing that there is a potential. Because if you have, for example, only prosumers, each of them, you will have that overproduction. But if they distribute production and demand in a different way, problem might be solved in the easier way. So it's not their main purpose, but they can also benefit to not just to citizens, but also in much more places.
Before we dive into project results that I wanted to ask you, I also saw that there was a question in the chat, and I thought it's interesting that we could share. Christian asked, at what scale should we think about energy communities? Should we think about it in buildings, neighborhoods, or city level? Do you have any thoughts about that before we move on?
In short, I think the point of energy communities is that these can happen on different scales. And I think it's entirely possible to have energy communities just from a handful of people, really small scale. But for the democratic energy transition to take place, I think it's important to scale up. And I think for me, it's extremely interesting to look at how the kind of cooperative efforts to take over city level utilities in Germany and other countries. And I think there is a great potential for that one. And I would like to add that energy communities are often made out of people who live in the proximity of each other, but it's not necessarily something which is local. So we can have energy communities across the country to share energy with each other. I think it's a business model that can be achieved. There are examples for that one from Austria and other countries. And I think it's important to look at energy communities not just as some nice citizen initiatives in a for-profit energy market, but something who has the potential to organize a different market in a long term, obviously. But I think energy communities have definitely a potential to upscale.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I heard previously that, for example, Chris was mentioning countries as examples and so on. So I was wondering, I know that Jelena, as part of your project, Copper, you have investigated the legal barriers that energy communities face when they are trying to operate in countries like Denmark, Portugal, the Netherlands, and Norway. So could you share an example of what are these legal barriers that they encounter?
Yes, that was the first part of our research. Next part of our research is much more interesting. It's modeling and to see how energy communities can behave in a different circumstances, and that can be really, really interesting. But to do that, you have to know what are you dealing with. So first, you have to dig deep into legislation to know what is possible in each country. And here, I would like to say one thing. Before I start working with this project, I lived in Serbia, so my understanding of energy communities was completely different. So as an engineer who has to understand how energy community works in those countries was really difficult. And main barrier, if you ask me from the beginning, is what energy communities means. So basically, it is one term that that is quite well known now, because we are familiar with it for almost 7 years so far. But again, when you read different policies from a different country, energy communities can have different meanings. So often you don't know where to start searching for. That is one legal barrier that I found quite big. And also, for example, now I'm going deep into legislation about energy communities in Denmark. And when you try to, and it's not just about Denmark, I can say that it's the same for every country. If you try to understand, if you read one law about energy communities, and you might have idea that you understand everything, but you have to have in mind that legislations are all over the place. So if you have to search for another thing into some different law just to see if it's possible, because that can be your barrier when you try to establish your energy communities. For example, one thing that I found interesting in Denmark, that as an energy community that share electricity, you have to have your own supplier, and that's completely okay. But on the other side, a law that deals with suppliers, it's never stated that they all have to support energy communities. So now you have, as dealing with electricity sharing among the members of energy communities, quite complex task. So finding a supplier who wants to work with your energy community is really, really tough one. And again, on a paper, you have everything that is written so nicely and looks so easily and so possible, but when you have to deal that in reality, you can find also some legal barrier on some other way. And I think that all European countries are dealing more or less with the same kind of problems, and you can always find some barriers, some boundaries, some capacity that you can or cannot install. For example, now I can say that I know something about energy communities in Denmark, but for example, if I move to Sweden, I don't know if my knowledge can be useful there. I have to start from the beginning of understanding of energy communities in a context of that country. The same comes with Netherlands, because in the beginning I thought because Netherlands has a lot of energy cooperatives, and then I thought, okay, the things are done there. But when it comes to sharing that has to be implemented in the future, no one knows. So when we are talking about energy communities, there is a question: what are energy communities? So what is their legal entities that they have to be? And then comes grid problem in the Netherlands, where you can or cannot share your electricity. So things become much more complex. So to understand what it means, you just have to look at one specific country. And here I don't even want to mention Norway. It's really interesting case, but they're not part of EU, so they don't have to use the directive, so they're doing on their own. And if you want to know more, you can always read our report and our short papers about it. But the things is so complex, and also you can always I can always talk about it much more. But I will stop now.
Thank you, Jelena. We just shared on the chat the article that you wrote.
Thank you.
I saw also Adela nodding while you were speaking, and you also sparked some comments on the chat. So I invite you to check that. I wanted to ask you, Adela, about your project, Open CEC. What solutions is your project working for, or what are you planning to offer as part of the outputs of your project? Thank you.
Yes, in Open for Czech, we have developed a modular platform that allow community to simulate different business scenarios for initial planning or for upgrading their existing capacities in PV or storage, or also to forecast their PV production, monitor and optimization, load and storage, evaluate different benefit sharing mechanisms. But the most important thing is that when we start the project, we only think of technical aspects like optimization, forecast, and so on. But after studying different legislation in different countries and talk to the prosumers and energy communities, we started to develop an artificial intelligent assistant. It's called Ether Energy. It's launched on the Open for Czech platform, and the aim and the innovation is the ability to talk to your data. This is where the real data comes into place, and basically the tool allow user communities or just prosumers to upload a sample data, let's say the last month records from inverter or from their smart meters. And the application calculates several type of KPIs for energy efficiency, economic beneficials, and so on. And large language model interpret these KPIs and offer them recommendation and customize their, let's say, profile, allow them to customize their profile. Also, another thing that this tool provides is a support for asking questions related to the legislation. We design, let's say, a chatbot is not only a chatbot, but mainly it's application that uses a knowledge base with documents, with reports, with legislation, and allow the user to ask specific questions. For example, I am in a Romanian city, let's say, or a village. How I want to create an energy community. We are 400 houses and so on. So the user describe what he intends to do and ask recommendation and from the AI assistant. And based on the existing legislation and regulatory aspects and let's say constraint, technical grid and so on constraints, the tool provides recommendation tailored to that specific country and specific, let's say, user states. It's called something like a user state, user profile, let's say. It is available for testing for sure, and it supports English for the moment. But we tried in Romanian, and yes, it speaks Romanian. Maybe you can try another languages. Yes, but please test it and give us feedback because it's so important for us to have your feedback.
It sounds perfect.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you.
Sounds super interesting. You said that the users would be people who are in the energy communities, but are there other users for potential for this tool?
Yes, the application is tailored for prosumers. So when you, after logging in, you can select your role, prosumer or energy community.
Mm-hmm.
So based on the role, the platform would redirect a specific page, asking some question to create a simple profile, and then provide you a lot of KPIs. That first we designed a similar application. It's called EcoSim. It's also on the Open for Check platform, but it is so technical that no one uses it. So it's like, okay, what are these KPIs and what should I do with them? Because people are not used to interpret a lot of things that it's common for us to know. If we see a self-sufficiency index, we know what it means. But simple people or energy community initiatives, they don't know such things. And an interpreter, an AI-based assistant allows us then explain them what this means.
Yeah.
And how to improve them, of course.
Adela, you said that it's available for testing and then we, I guess, finish later on. So maybe we can follow up on this and send an email to all participants with a link or some information.
Yes, I provided the link. It's
yes.
Yeah. I can put it in chat if
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. That sounds good. Yeah, I would like to go into the bigger picture. So I would like to ask you, from your opinion, what's the role at the moment of the energy communities in Europe? Do you think that this role could change at the moment? Are they the main drivers of the energy transition, or are they just on the sidelines?
I can start. We know that next Tuesday the Commission will publish the Citizens' Energy Package. We've seen a leak, and we know that the Commission will propose to increase the community energy capacity in Europe 10 times by 2030. So that's 4 years, to increase the capacity of community energy project to 90 gigawatts from 9 gigawatt today. So you can see that the potential is huge. This is institutionally recognized. But now it's indeed, if we're going to set up the right policies in place to realize this potential. For example, Adela talked a lot about the need to have one-stop shop-like tools, platforms. I think it's important to have at least one such national or regional one-stop shop everywhere. We're seeing this in Spain with the community transformation offices that help citizens set up energy communities at the regional level. We see it in Austria. There's a national one-stop shop platform. There's an energy community one-stop shop that's going to be set up in Greece soon. So really, I think that could be one first like major step in realizing all of this. But yeah, we need national transposition for sure. So yeah.
I can add something to this. I completely agree. And I think that one-stop shop is something that is really needed. But what would I also like to add that might be important for energy communities and is that for them to be recognized by municipality in their strategic plans. So municipalities have to recognize something, energy communities as something that they want to have. And in that way, we will have that support and possibilities of establishing one sustainable energy community. In that way, it's much higher.
Thank you. So we said that we need the national transposition of the legislation, the European legislation, and that the municipalities recognize energy communities as something that is strategic for their local neighbor. So
Sorry, Anna, could I just jump in and immediately respond to Yelena to say that, because I mentioned this at the very start on the Social Climate Fund, which starts this year and it's going to run until 2032, and it's meant to support vulnerable households and micro enterprises, which will be affected by ETS2, the new carbon market that will start in 2028. So member states are now finalizing their social climate plans, and a lot of them actually, particularly in Eastern Europe, like Bulgaria and Poland, have said that they will actually fund community energy projects at the municipal level to provide free electricity to vulnerable households for many, many years to come. So I think this is really a great tool that we have right now in our hands, the Social Climate Fund, to promote as well these community municipal collaborations. And I will share we have a Social Climate Fund tracker where we're tracking the different social climate plans. I'm happy to share it in the chat.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks for your insights. So we are now close to the hour of the webinar. So I would like to, before our audience leave, I would like them to get an advice from you, a piece of advice. So this is like a do and a don't. I would like to ask you, what is one do and one don't for citizens to be part of the energy transition in Europe? You can take it from any point of view you want. Let's start with Yelena.
Okay, something just came into my mind because we are mentioning energy transition several times, but I think that the key word in energy communities concept of energy transition is just energy transition. So we are going beyond energy transition to justice system. So what to do? Well, do it, and don't let legal barriers to stop you.
Great. Chris?
Maybe I'll close the same way I started. You're not alone. There's a bunch of energy communities. There's probably one already in your town or your region. You can look at the RESCOOP map. I'll send it to you. It includes all of our members as well as other community energy projects, or just feel free to reach out to me and I can link you with someone. And a don't forget to talk about this with your friends, within your family dinners, even in like more awkward, let's say more conservative contexts that, maybe you're not feeling super comfortable to bring it up. But I think there's really a lot of different messages we can use to convince people. And you remember the very first thing that I mentioned is local control. And I think this resonates with all sorts of audiences. Your conservative uncle, your liberal sister. I think this is really a message that unites all of us right now, especially, seeing what's happening in the world with Cuba, Iran, Venezuela, Greenland. I think we're all realizing that the faster we switch to a local renewable energy system, the safer we'll be, the more prosperous we will be. So have these conversations, as difficult as they may as they may be sometimes.
Thank you, Chris. Very relatable to an adult. Next, Adela.
Yeah, what to do? I think long term. Build energy communities, combining renewable energy, digital intelligence, and socio-economic benefits. Engage actively and ask questions. Understand how energy flows, how benefits are distributed, and how decisions are made. Energy community work when members participate, not just financially, but also intellectually. Don't. Don't treat an energy community just a way to lower the electricity bill. If it becomes transactional, it loses its social and democratic value. And don't assume technology alone will solve everything. Solar panels and storage are just tools, but trust, fairness, and collaboration are what make communities sustainable.
Thank you so much, Adela. And last but not least, Marton.
Wow, I can connect with all of you. I think really great do's and don'ts. What I have in mind is about do's is to be brave, to be a pioneer and don't wait for other people in the sense of it's about creating something new, especially in countries where energy communities or energy cooperatives don't have that many roots, and to learn. Because I think it's all a learning process. When we are talking about the legal barriers, it's like, how I became a hobby lawyer, or how to say it, because you need to learn, you need to understand the nitty-gritties, you need to design an organizational framework for the future. So I think it's a lot of learning process and a lot of collaborative learning process in creating an energy community, working together with other people and building trust. And the don't for me is don't expect quick results, because it's a slow process. And even to install a solar panel together with other people takes a lot of time, and probably more time than you expect. And you need to give that time, because that's how you build up proper long-term resilient projects.
Thanks so much. This is super, super inspiring. I hope the audience also feel the same way. Thanks for sharing your insights in this talk. We have recorded this webinar, so we will upload it to YouTube very soon. If you would like to learn more about us, DUT, and listen to other Urban Lunch talks, please sign up to our newsletter. You can see the link on the chat. Thank you very much to all. See you soon. Bye.
Bye, see you.
Have a nice rest of the day.